Welcome to HCA Talks Health. I'm Zina Leroux, and today I'm talking to Dani Simpson. So Dani is a health coach. She recently graduated from HCA, and she's also the author of Resilient, Brilliant You, 7 Mindsets to Live in Freedom from Dis-ease and Disease. So thank you so much for joining us today, Dani. It's so lovely to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Dani, I want to start out with your own journey and how you got to where you are today. So, I know that you got sick and you healed yourself. So, please share with our listeners what happened and how you healed yourself.
Mm. Yeah, I got really sick. I actually got so sick that I lost my job. And I realized the impact of stress, whether it was emotional stress, work stress, trauma stress, and I was really feeling the impact that that had on my body. And I hadn't put two and two together at the beginning, but I knew that my disease was happening in layers in connection with the emotional disease that I was feeling. So the feelings of dis-ease and upset and stress and trauma were manifesting as fibromyalgia, as endocrine dysfunction, as chronic fatigue. I actually ended up losing my job. I was covered in eczema from head to toe, couldn't brush my hair without being in pain. And then I was under the hospital. I joined a lot of support groups, but something inside me knew that it was a progression, that I'd got to that place. So I knew that if I could go in that direction, that I could also redress the symptoms back. So I set about on a journey, and this was before I became a health coach, to just look at all the science. And I followed people like Caroline Leaf. I looked at Dr. Cantifer's book, Depression, The Curse of the Strong. I just researched so many things. I looked at my diet. And I realized that as I started to get my mind right and eat better and move away from the stressful situations, that my symptoms started to get better. And one day I woke up and thought, hey, I don't have fibromyalgia this week. I haven't had it for 5 days, and then it was the next symptom. I realized that my chronic fatigue was getting less and that I could finally do a Pilates class. HIIT classes were way off limits, but laying on a mat and moving my body, which felt as heavy as lead at the time, was doable. And I started to piece together all the different things that were helping me feel better: connection, Pilates, choosing to laugh, hanging out with friends, connecting with people, and really sort of starting to crystallize this pathway to healing whilst still trying to work out the science behind it.
Yes.
So it was just amazing. And that's why I got into health coaching.
Okay, a really good fit then. But so it's quite interesting how you said you wanted to trace back those steps. If it was possible for me to get here, I can trace those steps back to also reverse it, and that's exactly what you did. And I don't think people always believe that it's possible. Often what we're told is that that's it, you're going to have to live with it for the rest of your life. We're maybe going to have to treat or manage the symptoms, but nothing that we can do around reversing it.
Exactly. And I think the key thing that I discovered in all of this is that there are two buckets in life. They're the bucket of not enough and the bucket of too much. You're not enough, or you're just too much, you're too loud, you're too bossy, and we tend to be on this crazy default setting where we fit into one of each bucket until we start to question why we're doing the things that we do. Why are we allowing ourselves to stay in negative relationships, in a job that's stressful and that's hurting us? Why is it? And these are things like performance-based love and perfectionism and striving. And why are we doing these things? Because actually they're rooted in something much deeper. And it's a limiting belief. You know, where did that come from? The belief that I'm not enough and therefore I need performance-based love. I've got to strive. I've got to prove myself. I've got to push myself. Because if we didn't have those beliefs in the first place, we wouldn't be doing the actions that we do that make us sick.
Yes.
So it's a real deep dive into ourselves and having really honest conversations about why we're doing the things that we do, because so often we try to minimize them and ignore them and deny them and, you know, push them away. It's too uncomfortable. But yeah, once we start having those brave conversations with ourselves, we can start having the brave conversations with other people and setting healthier boundaries, telling people what we expect. And that's when life starts to change. So it really does all come from in here, not the external forces that are acting on us. It's about getting it right in here and in here.
Yes. So really connecting with that why. Why are we doing all of these destructive, habits, or why do we perceive something in a certain way? It's those limiting beliefs coming in the way when on a healing journey as well. And you said that you've done a lot of work with reading Dr. Caroline Leaf's work. So obviously, it sounds like when you're talking about all of these things, limiting beliefs, Caroline Leaf's work, that mindset is really at the core of a healing journey. So what was the impact of your mindset on your healing journey?
That's a really powerful question. And it's the difference between fear and catastrophizing and being trapped in these fearful situations. You know, we've all got this voice in our head, you know, that tells us, oh, you know, you're not good enough, you can't do this, you know, this is going to go wrong, like da, da, da. And if we don't listen to that voice and shut it down and almost sort of take it captive and make it go away and actually replace that with the truth, which is, do you know what? I'm not perfect. I might make a mistake. This could go wrong. It doesn't matter, because when life stops being about me, and how I look to everybody, or if I'm doing enough for everybody, or how I'm perceived by everybody, and it starts being about love and joy and life and gratitude and just being there for other people, but also being there for yourself, all of that stuff just falls by the wayside. And it's like those huge mountains suddenly become molehills for us, and they're not even a thing anymore. And if I know that I'm getting up in the morning, I'm showing up as my best self, I'm just grateful for blessings in my life, I'm grateful for the people around me, I'm grateful for the sunshine. You know, if I'm operating from that place, I'm not worrying, I'm not stuck in fear or perfectionism or guilt or not enough or what people think of me. I'm just embracing joy and life. And I call it living life in the wellness zone. And Dr. Caroline Leaf talks about making new pathways through the woods, you know, and there's a chapter about this in my book. When the negative thought comes up, and they could be sayings like, bad things come in threes, it never rains, but it pours, you know, your brain is very clever at taking the truth that you tell it and then finding evidence to make that the truth. So we can't be surprised, you know, if we're having negative thoughts, it's no surprise that that's how our day is going to go. But when we replace those thoughts with, do you know what? That's really crazy or annoying that that happened, but it doesn't mean that something else bad's going to happen today.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just for ourselves, but it's for the people around us. We're just emanating that positivity and that life and that joy and that optimism, and it's really catching. And I did a study once for a week because I love looking at the science of things. And I looked at people in the street, in supermarkets, in my own family, and I just noted down the number of negative things that people said. And a lot of them were sayings that are actually not true at all. And then I thought, if we replace those with a positive saying and start making those super high ways of thinking in our brain, that's going to become our default setting. And that's how I got well, by deciding to shut down any and every negative thought, even what I was told about not recovering, and replacing it with, no, I choose to believe that I am going to get better and I'm going to figure out how to do it. And it was an amazing journey.
Yes. Oh, wow. It's such a authentic journey, and yeah. So thank you for sharing that story with us, and how powerful it was in your own life. And I agree, we're often conditioned to be quite negative. Many people are. So it's a choice to reframe that and to see it in a different and a positive way, and say, no, I'm not gonna create that neural pathway, I'm not gonna deepen that neural pathway, to to be able to move forward. So yeah. So Dani, you just mentioned that you, through all of this, I don't know if this is what made you decide to write a book. Was it this journey that, yeah, made you to decide to
Absolutely,
write a book?
yeah.
Mm.
Once I figured out this truth that, oh my goodness, we can reverse dis-ease and disease, I just didn't want to keep it to myself. I felt like I need to tell everybody. So lots of people had said to me, like, Dani, you know, you need to write a book, you know, you need to
Yeah.
put this all on paper. But it was such a long journey over years that it was so much stuff, you know, Brene Brown, Richard Wiseman, Caroline Leaf, Dr. Cantifer, you know, Harvard papers, you know, it was so much, but it was a real challenge and a joy to just crystallize everything into, okay, what are the key 7 mindsets? What are the key 21 steps? And it really is a progressive journey in the book. I talk about having the authentic conversations with yourself, which has got to be the foundation before we can start then having conversations, braver conversations with other people. And then looking at gratitude, looking at the science behind joy and laughter, looking at perfectionism, looking at rejection, you know, all these things, they're almost like boulders or strongholds. You know, what are the 21 things that keep us trapped in this place that actually nobody wants to be trapped in? You know, it's like being a freedom fighter. You know, I refuse to stay stuck in anything that's going to keep me down or hold me back. Okay, how can I reframe this, or flip this, or look at this in a different way, in order to heal? And rejection is a really interesting one of those,
Mhm.
because I used to suffer from quite a lot of rejection or feelings of rejection. But that's only because, and most of our stuff goes back to childhood.
Yeah.
I grew up in Kew Gardens. So I was there for about 15 years, and we were surrounded by royalty and David Attenborough and film crews, and I felt like, wow, you know, they're really important. They're doing really important stuff, and I just need to be seen and not heard, and just keep out of the way. And you know, I don't feel that I'm good enough. You know, I felt quite rejected, but that was all a prison of my own mind. But then when I actually started looking at rejection and exploring the psychology behind it, I realized that rejection is a feeling that we tell ourselves of, I'm not good enough, my idea is not good enough, my thing's not good enough, I'm not good enough, but actually the truth is your idea, your thing, you are valuable and have value. It's just that person or that place or whatever doesn't have the capacity for you at the moment. That could be they don't have the time for you at the moment, or your idea. They don't have, the knowledge. They don't understand properly what it is that you're trying to bring them. The last thing you want is to be in partnership with somebody or something that isn't championing and excited about your idea. And J.K. Rowling suffered from this. They rejected and rejected and rejected Harry Potter. But instead of feeling rejected and sort of shrinking into ourselves by whoever or whatever it is, we can wholeheartedly keep knocking on doors until the right person who wants to champion you and is excited about you or your idea and is celebrating you opens the door. And that's the only door that you want to walk through. And so many of us, we're human, rejection doesn't feel nice until we flip it around and look at what it actually is and the opportunity it actually brings to walk through the right door of somebody that isn't going to reject you or your idea. So that's exciting.
Beautiful way to look at rejection. And you're right, it's often just that specific situation or that specific person who doesn't have the capacity or the time right now. But often there's that persistence. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to take it into my identity if I'm rejected, right?
Exactly.
And keep on knocking, keep on knocking. Eventually someone will champion you and see you for who you are and the full capacity and everything that you can offer. So I really wanted to just stand still at a few of these, or just focus a little bit more on some of these elements that you've touched on and that I know you also share in your book. So reframing rejection is one of them, but also living out the science of gratitude and joy. So tell me more about what that is.
That's a really exciting one. And I think that's replacing this feeling of, things aren't right with the world and this stuff is all happening to me, and sort of focusing on that and making that very big. Our energy flows where our focus goes. So instead of that, I was really focusing on just prayer and meditation and gratitude and just, what can I be thankful for today? I've lost my job, I'm having to take my company to court, I'm in a difficult marriage, or I'm going through a divorce. If we just focus on those things, they become very big and all-consuming. So how can we counteract that? We can wake up, and the first thing that I chose to start doing every morning was just wake up, just take a breath and just say a prayer. Just, thank you, God, for this day. Like, thank you for the sky. Thank you for the clouds. Thank you for my friends. But also just being grateful for the moments, rather than quickly downing, a cup of tea, just really enjoying that tea and enjoying that moment. And then I started looking, so I'd experienced the benefits of it, but I wanted to understand the science behind it. So I looked at scientific studies. They'd done one at the University of Pennsylvania. They'd done another one at the University of Michigan. And they were just so interesting because they got different groups of people to write thank you letters to people that had done something amazing but never really been appreciated for their kindness. And they tracked the happiness levels, of being grateful to somebody, handing somebody a thank you note or card, and then tracking the levels of happiness of the different groups. And it was just amazing. The results showed that happiness just soared through the roof if we're grateful to other people. And interestingly, they didn't have to actually give the people the letter. At the University of Indiana, some of the groups just wrote the letter without actually giving it to the person. And even the act of being grateful ourselves brings that joy. It decreases the stress hormone cortisol. It just releases, happy hormones, and just being grateful. Richard Wiseman mentions it in his book as well, in 59 Seconds. Just being grateful and, praying for somebody else, or just thanking the universe or God, for somebody else in your life, is scientifically proven over and over again to create wellness. And I experienced it myself. And then I found the science, which was a really lovely way to do it.
I absolutely love when that happens, when we kind of intuitively know something works for us, but then there's that fantastic science to back it up. And then it just merges in such a beautiful way. So, so reframing rejection, living out the science of gratitude and joy. We've touched a little bit on breaking up with fear and perfectionism. Or is there anything else that you want to add?
I just think the science of joy and happiness, is the opposite to fear. When we're in fear, we become small. But when we choose to live life out of joy, we become bigger. Joy and laughter is quite a big expression. And in lockdown, there's an amazing lady in South Africa called Sue Jameson, and they renamed Johannesburg Joyburg. So because of her, I got onto these Zoom calls. She's a trained joy and laughter activist. And she was amazing. She told me the story of Norman Cousins, who was given a 1 in 500 chance of healing. He had a terrible form of arthritis. He was in terrible pain. But he decided to watch comedies. He decided to laugh. He decided to use laughter as medicine, as pain-free medicine. And he actually got himself nearly completely better.
Wow.
So I used to sit on these calls with Sue. We were on Zoom as people from all over the world. And we just laughed, not at anything. We just chose to laugh. And it's really interesting that your body doesn't know the difference between fake laughter or real laughter. And it's just telling your body, it's well, it's great, it's all good. And your body then responds to that, and you end up laughing for real rather than to pretend. And interestingly, I used to work at a place in London. I was managing the PR for Foxtons at the time, but I worked in a business park that was run by Enjoy Work. And the concept was, I had to go and interview the CEO. I think Kay Chaston was the CEO at the time. And she was explaining to me that when people enjoy work, they're happier people and they do better work. And they'd looked at all the science behind all of this. So big companies like View and Swarovski Crystals and Starbucks, and they're all in this business park, but the whole thing is geared towards joy and enjoying work. So we had lakes and waterfalls and chocolates on our desk and roses and barbecues at lunchtime. It was joyful. And when I connected with Sue in South Africa, she explained to me how that really impacts productivity, it impacts connection with colleagues, it impacts, so many things, team work, in the workspace. And that work even increases by, I think it was up to 37%, the stats say. So executive functioning and collaboration and creativity. And I just find it absolutely fascinating that joy is almost the cherry on the top of all the other steps.
Yeah.
Really, really powerful.
And I love how contagious laughter is. So it's
Yes.
such a beautiful way to also enhance our social connections. It's so difficult to not laugh if someone's laughing, even though you don't even know what they're laughing at. So it is just such a beautiful way to connect people as well. Okay, so the last element that I want to touch on that you write about in your book is embracing forgiveness.
Mm, that's a really big and powerful one. And I think actually quite a lot of my clients or people that come to me are really sort of trapped and struggling and stuck in a place quite often because of unforgiveness. And I started to realize how big unforgiveness is. You know, it's a big problem in society. And a lot of that is because of people's limiting beliefs or not quite understanding really what forgiveness or unforgiveness is. So I started to look into that and the science of that. And there's an amazing lady called Nadia Boltz-Weber. And she said, what if forgiveness isn't a pansy way of saying, oh, that's okay? You know, what if forgiving somebody is wielding badass bolt cutters to the chains of what's connecting us to the
I love it.
harm, you know, that the person did to us? So what if forgiveness is being a freedom fighter? What if forgiveness is unwrapping, you know, the snake that's coiled around our arms, you know, that keeps biting us? And it's just this cocktail, this toxic cocktail of, you know, retribution and retaliation and hurt and bitterness, you know, and all of those things really traumatize our body and really impact that ability to live in joy and gratitude. You know, they're sort of opposite sides of a spectrum. And I think a lot of the time, people don't realize that you can't always say, do you know what? What they did is not okay, but I forgive them because I don't want to be connected, you know, to that pain and that harm. That actually needs sometimes doing daily. And that also forgiveness doesn't mean that what they did is okay. It doesn't always mean reconciliation. It might sometimes mean that we put a really healthy boundary in place, or that we forgive and we don't connect ourselves with that person or that place or whatever anymore. You know,
Yes.
we've forgiven, but in some cases can't reconcile because it's not safe. You know, it's not emotionally safe for us to do that. And I think recognizing that is key. And also, how about forgiveness when sorry never comes? You know, what if that person, for a whole host of reasons, they could have their own stuff, their own problems, their own issues, low emotional intelligence, you know, what if sorry never comes? What if that person's passed away? But we can still choose, even if sorry doesn't come, to take out the bolt cutters and just cut that connection to the pain and the harm, forgive and move on. It's like instead of trying to survive with the past, you know, sort of coming after you, it's like physically turning around and saying no to the past and shutting the door on the harm that was done. And it might be that we leave the door open a little bit, you know, and this is where accountability comes in, because somebody can say sorry, we can forgive somebody, we might then be in a relationship with them, we might be in a space with them, maybe it's a colleague at work, but it doesn't mean we then open our hearts, you know, to that person again. Maybe we need to take steps to make sure that they're being accountable and that they are rebuilding and that they are rebuilding trust. And it's a process, it's not an either or, it's a journey. And I think quite often a lot of people that I've met struggle with perfectionism as well. And they need everything to be perfect and everything to be okay. And okay, I forgive you. Let's immediately get to the space and the place that we want to be in. Let's live the picture in our head, you know. But quite often it's not about the destination, it's about the journey and just loving, enjoying, being in the journey of loving yourself, loving other people, having self affirmations rather than needing them from other people, and having empathy to the people around us. And I think that's a really key tool. You know, if we've got empathy that maybe somebody did the thing they did because they've got stuff going on, or perhaps they've got their own unhealed stuff, if we can release empathy but still put healthy boundaries in place, then society's going to be a lot happier and healthier, and we're all going to be loving each other better.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, so putting yourself in their shoes, but having those healthy boundaries. And I think this all comes back to the perception, the mindset that we have when it comes to forgiveness. You're so right in the little, in the explanation of it. It's not a pansy way, it's not a weak thing to do to forgive others. It's this really strong, badass way of cutting the chains of the past. So
Absolutely.
just shifting your mindset around this could be exactly what's needed to have a more joyful and a fulfilling life.
Hmm.
So I those are some of the elements that you touch on your book. But when I read through your website, I found this one quote, and there's a few fantastic quotes on your website, but my favorite is definitely the one from Raymond Ramos, and he says, "Getting out of the boat may be scary, but staying in the boat is devastating." So what does this quote mean to you? Obviously, you've put it on your website. So what does it mean to you?
That quote means everything to me. And I actually hooked up with Raymond Ramos in lockdown. And he is, so he's based in New York, and he helps addicts, drug addicts, you know, turn their lives around and get back on their feet. And I just found it such a privilege to be
Mm,
part of the groups that he was running and helping people to change their mindsets and lives and rebuild. And people can get so low and so stuck, you know, whatever their situation is, you know, and all of our situations, we can't ever say, oh, your situation's worse than mine, or you know, they're all relative to each person. And, you know, our stuff is our stuff. It's really hard. And when we're in that hard place and we're in the boat, you know, like I was ill, I had you know, eczema, endocrine dysfunction, chronic fatigue. You know, I knew I can't stay in this place because it's making me ill, you know, and we were living in building sites. I was looking after a baby, a toddler, and an older child. You know, I just could not cope. I got to the point where I just thought, I can't do this anymore. I actually feel like I'm going to have a stroke or I'm going to die. You know, it got that bad. So that quote means, do you know what? Getting out of the boat is scary, but what if you could take 21 steps on water? What if, when you get out of the boat, rather than sinking and drowning, which is the question for people that are stuck in addiction, stuck in chronic illness, stuck in relationships, stuck in situations, maybe they're stuck at work and they feel like, I've been in this company for a long time, I can't leave. The question is, the fear is, what will become of me? What will happen to me? How am I going to keep myself safe if I get out of this boat? You know, it's a real sink or swim moment. But I really just want to encourage and reassure people that when you get out of the boat, even though it's scary, you will move forward. You'll move away from what's keeping you stuck and in fear and ill and full of dis-ease and disease, and you will start to take 21 steps on water and go towards your good place, your bright place, your healthy place, your well place. So, in a sense, yes, getting out of the boat is scary, but getting out of the boat means you're going to move forward. You're going to start walking on the water. Whereas you could stay in the boat, and we've got to realize this is a choice. You know, doing nothing is a choice. We can choose to move towards something better, or we can choose to stay in our situation. But for so many people, and a lot of my clients that come to me, their choice to stay in their boat of dysfunction, of ill health, you know, was devastating, or has been devastating, or is devastating. And that's where we lose years of our life, or that's where we stay in the place where somebody's demeaning us or belittling us or knocking us down, but we feel like, what if I come out of this place and it's worse? And I just want to encourage everybody, or anyone listening to this, that's having that question, that if you get out the boat, there is light that shines in darkness, and the light is bright, and darkness doesn't win over light. When you get out of your boat and you walk on water, you're walking towards the future, towards the horizon, towards the sunrise,
Yes.
rather than staying in the devastating place that you're in.
Yeah, but it's often all that they know. And then it becomes a very uncomfortable comfort zone for them. And that's why it's often difficult to take that step. But yes, as you're saying, there is hope, and it's also a choice to stay. But having that support maybe from someone like you to help them to shift their mindset and to have the courage to take that step, I think is very important. So Dani, taking all of this into consideration, I'm curious about, how would you define health and wellness? What's your definition of health?
My definition of health is that health is wealth. So I come from a situation, a family, where my granddad owned lots of businesses. He owned, greengrocers in Holland Park. He owned laundry businesses, in London. I grew up in a business, living in Kew. I married the CEO of my company. It was all about working and, building up life, wealth, empire. But actually, that's not the stuff that gives us wealth. We can have all of that stuff and still be unhappy, still be frightened, still be living in perfectionism, still be living in performance-based love, still, we haven't got freedom. Health is the only thing that brings us true wealth, because when we're living in that place of joy and love and peace and freedom and wellness and connection, and we're just giving our best self, showing up as our best self every day, instead of sort of striving, to build something, because a lot of us do this because we want to live the picture in our head, or maybe we had this picture or this dream, of what life has to look like. And that's another reason that some people just don't let go, because they need life to look a certain way to everybody else, or look at them, or look at her, or look, and they sort of try and hold it all together. But actually they could be dying inside. And when we've got that emotional dis-ease, it creates disease, it creates chronic health conditions, and I'm talking about, type 2 diabetes, cardiac problems, all of the things that come with stress. What's the point of living life? We need to think about our health span rather than our lifespan. What's the point of living life if by the time you've done this all and you've worked so much, you've got so many chronic health conditions that you can't actually enjoy your life, and you can't enjoy your home and your friends and your children and your grandchildren, because every choice that we make, we know this now from science, every choice that we make, even when we're younger, impacts our quality of life and our health when we're older. So we need to look at life as a whole and be asking ourselves all the time, how is this decision impacting my health, my well-being, my sense of wholeness, my sense of wellness, and if it's not a green light, this is fine, this is good, this is great for you, we need to sometimes question, do you know what? I might actually need a whole life shift. And some people do get to that point. I've had clients come to me and say, I am at the point of burnout. I'm in the red zone. I cannot function. My social connection, I've been living in fight and flight for so long. I've tipped into the red zone. where I can't connect with people. I don't even want to wake up in the mornings. I can't. That's not a place to allow ourselves to get to. We need to listen to our body's warning signs and do something way before we get to that point, because by the time we've got to the point of being in that red zone, that danger zone, it's not going to be little tweaks that are going to help us get better. It's going to have to be things like what we did, which was moving to the coast, moving your whole life, to the beach, like changing the whole way that you do life and live life. And those are the really big, brave decisions. It's almost like the more red flags you ignore, the harder the big decisions are you're going to have to make. So it's better to make the little decisions when you realize you're starting to notice things aren't right. You've got aches, you've got pains, you've got headache, you've got niggles. What's going on? What's my body trying to tell me? It's at that point that we need to love ourselves enough to listen to our bodies and to do something to help our bodies. Your body's trying to look after you and also to help each other. If you've got a friend or somebody in your family that's, mentioning or struggling with these things, let's not let other people struggle on. We could all be a health coach in that sense, and just make sure that people's, well, how's your diet? How's your nutrition? How much sugar are you eating? Are you doing any exercise? Are you connected to people? We can love each other well whilst we're loving ourselves well.
Yes, exactly. And I think it all starts with that self-awareness, to know, to realize, okay, oopsie, something's going on. And like you're sharing with us, the niggles, the small stuff, and to react, to do something before all those red flags add up, and eventually you might need to make a really big shift, which might also be part of the journey. But having that awareness, I think, is really key. So, Dani, how do you support clients, and how can they find you? What are the ways that you support clients?
So I've got quite a few ways actually. So I do health coaching. So you can find me at strideinTolife.com. And through the health coaching, I do signature programs with people that are either 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 10 weeks. I've also got a lovely retreat on the coast in Kent, and that's called Vitamin C Residency. So I'm just looking at the moment about building that into the health coaching practice so that I can actually do retreats with people. But a lot of people come on holiday here to just read the book, take time out, spend some time self-reflecting, going for coastal walks. I've got an amazing friend who's a marine biologist and an ecologist that just brings nature alive, to people. It's just so fun going on a walk with her. So so people book into that as well. I'm connected with Sue to do the joy and laughter coaching as well. And I'm about to start working with Mind, which is the mental health charity in Whitstable, to start doing a group. And this is the key thing about this book. It's so much more powerful to do the activations, have the discussions in a group setting with other people, because shared stories, shared experiences are just so much more powerful, and we all learn from each other. I know some, but other people know their own stuff, their own journey, their own experiences. Let's share stuff with each other. So I'm going to start doing a Zoom group. It's going to be a 21-day retreat. It's only about half an hour a day on Zoom, but where people can come and actually spend time with me and work through these activations and share their stories, share their experiences with each other. And we're trying to get it into schools as well. I've just completed a pilot scheme with a local school that went really well. So we're going to start doing the Resilient Brilliant You program for schools, which is really exciting.
Wow.
Yeah, so lots of different hats and lots of different balls up in the air. I'm an NHS walk leader as well because, so many people are struggling that much that it's difficult to even, get out the house. But going once a week on a nice, gentle walk by the beach or around the park, can be so life-giving. And it's not just about the walking, it's called walk and talk because people chat and share, and some people just come for the drinks afterwards, which is lovely as well. And yeah, it's just such a privilege to be part of people's lives, whether I'm, NHS hat on and, walking by the beach, talking to somebody about their stuff and their health issues, or, whether I'm coaching somebody in clinic or welcoming somebody to the vitamin C residency, it's just nourishing society, nourishing our communities. And I think if we can all come together and just do our bit to just really care about and nourish the people around us. Anybody can become an NHS 1U walk leader. You don't need any special qualifications. You just do your training. And I work with the outdoor gym company as well, the Great Outdoor Gym Company, because I love what they are doing, just putting gyms in parks and spaces, and on the coast. And, not everybody can afford an expensive gym membership, and not everybody wants to go to the gym. We have this concept, so many people do, of, oh, I can't exercise because I don't like the gym. Okay, well, let's exercise outdoors. You could walk, you could run, you could use the outdoor gym, um, and they've been developing energy equipment as well, so that as you're exercising, you can be sort of powering up the lights in the park or
Oh,
charging
cool.
your mobile phone.
It's
It's
amazing.
just, it's
Yeah.
just fun. It's brilliant what they're doing. And also creating gyms for women,
Yeah.
because women, tend to not want to exercise outside as much as men because they don't want to be looked at, they don't. So they're actually creating spaces and landscaping and, gyms that are more geared towards women to solve these problems. They're a real solution provider. So
Mm.
it's all about healthy people and healthy planet. And I just love everything that they're doing. So I'm a real champion for the outdoor gym company.
I can just see how you light up when you talk about all of these projects. It's beautiful to see, and you're a real active participant in nourishing your communities. And yeah, it's really it's a true inspiration, and it's quite a proud moment to know that you're an HCA graduate and that you've only recently graduated and you've already achieved so much. So you're making such a big difference out there. So thank you, Dani. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And we really wish you all the best going forward. Is there any
Thank
last
you.
thoughts? Anything else that you maybe want to leave our listeners with?
Um, I think, I'm so grateful for HCA for giving me the training, and equipping me to understand the things that I do now, in connection with health. And I think the one thing that I'd leave with people is there's a saying, ignorance is bliss. Let's throw that out the window and replace that with knowledge is power. So I would encourage everybody to just find out about one thing that you can do to improve your health, whether that's a food and nutrition thing, whether it's something to do with your microbiome or your gut, whether it's to do with decreasing the amount of sugar that you're eating and the impact that will have on you. If it's one thing, one mindset, one phrase, a limiting belief that you're going to change, I just want to leave everybody with the encouragement to just think of the one thing to do today or to look into. Knowledge is power, but without the application of it, the information's irrelevant. We need to apply what we're learning, and that only helps us get healthier and stronger and love each other and ourselves better. So yeah, and thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Yes, it's been fantastic, and I agree. It's really about taking one small step, because if you just think about needing to change everything, it might feel so overwhelming. So, what is doable? What is one small step that you can take this week, today, to start getting out of that boat? So, thank you, Dani. Such a pleasure, such a joy to have you on the show, and all the best.
Thank you for having me.
If you have a passion for health and wellness, and you would like to make a difference in the lives of others and discover a new rewarding career in health and well-being coaching, visit www.healthcoachesacademy.com to find out more.